Hello everyone and welcome to Pyanodons Mods. This is Otaku's Showboat and today we'll be discussing rare earth processing. Again. If you've been enjoying these tutorials thus far, please be sure to do all of the engagement and social stuff below the video. This series is of course supported by my patrons at patreon.com/otakushowboat, and don't forget that you can support Pyanodons Mods development at patreon.com/pyanodon. Rare earth processing. Oh boy. What do I want this set to, and what do I want the output to be? Let's set it to ingredient input at 5 or in. So 5 or in is going to be the output of like one or two, I think it's two uh, mines, something along those lines. You don't need a lot of stuff for your rare earth ore. You don't really need to do much to get the ore. It is simply power to a mine, and you will have your ore. The complexity here comes from the outside inputs. That's going to be the main limiting factor here, is the outside inputs. And as you can probably see in this chain, today I am going to show you the numbers, and I'm going to show you the numbers of the branching paths that exist in this chain, because there are some options for you in regards to the rare earth processing chain. And let us not also forget that this chain can absolutely take productivity modules. So, the rare earth ore, first step, no matter what, first two steps are identical. You have to crush your ore into a powder, dealing with the stone, and then ball mill the powder into a dust, then dealing with the gravel. The dust, there are two things you could potentially do with the dust. The first one is to add sulfuric acid and water in FTS reactors. This gives you rich dust and rare earth mud, 37.5 rare earth mud, as well as sand and steam to deal with. This is as opposed to agitating your dust with 50 organic solvent to give you a little bit of iron ore, as well as 50 rare earth mud. So as you can see, 50 is greater than 37.5. We don't have a need for rich dust, so this is the process you're probably going to be using at all times, is the organic solvent plus earth dust into mud, into the rare earth mud. And then from here, we must thicken our mud by adding sulfuric acid to it. 100 units of sulfuric acid is a fair amount. It's a pretty large amount of sulfuric acid, but it will also convert 1-to-1 into 50 rare earth slurry, so pretty big on that expense for the sulfuric acid here. You can't really get around that. Then the rare earth slurry gets thrown into a fluid separator with ammonia and produces a trace amount of uranium ore as well as rare earth solution. And then we get into the next branching pathway of what in the world are you going to do with your rare earth solution? Well, I'll start off by saying that if you throw your rare earth solution into an evaporator, in this recipe, you will end up with 5 concentrate and 3 iron oxide. So the iron oxide product recipe with no outside input gives you 5 rare earth concentrate. The version with the cyanic acid gives you 5 chromium plates per second. That is not an insignificant amount of chromium plates. It is the exact amount in as rare earth or in per second. It is 1-to-1 on that front, and it gives you 10, twice as much rare earth concentrate out by using the cyanic acid recipe in the centrifugal pan. But there is one more option, and it has tended to be the option that I have gone with. thus far, but you actually have the option between this or the cyanic because, as it turns out, doing the evaporator with the sulfuric acid, 75 units more sulfuric acid, you end up with less byproduct to deal with in the form of 1 copper plate and the same amount of rare earth concentrate. So, is this recipe worth doing, or is this recipe worth doing? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this extra either way, you're going to need sulfuric acid being brought in here, which means that if you have 100 sulfuric acid to spend on this, you probably have the ability to get 175 sulfuric acid to spend on this. This doesn't involve anything really extra here. However, notice how it's 1-to-1 on the ammonia to cyanic acid. That is because there is a cyanic acid recipe out of urea that gives you 1-to-1 outputs, equal outputs of ammonia and cyanic acid. I think the intention here at the time that this was thought up was that it would be a good opportunity to use this urea recipe to give you ammonia and cyanic acid. But is it worth spending that urea? Not in Pi Alien Life. I would say just no. Just straight up no. Although that is I would say that is an intent here if you have the urea to just provide the ammonia and cyanic that's used in these 2 steps from the urea-based recipe. However, coal, methane, ammonia exists, and nitrogen, hydrogen, chromium, ammonia exists, which I would say would be better, generally speaking, overall. I would do this, but I would do the abiotic sources of the ammonia and cyanic. Despite it being only 75 more sulfuric acid to do that process, yeah, I'd say bring in the cyanic anyway. Now, there is a use for rare earth ore, or oxide, I guess I should say. There is a use of rare earth oxide with cobalt extract. But if we have a look at cobalt extract, this actually uses the ore to get into the mixed ores. I'll actually have to do mixed ores as an ingredient into the cobalt extract. Cobalt extract, because it uses rare earth ore, is something that you'll tend to do nearby, and especially since the cobalt fluoride also uses the rare earth oxide. Just note that this is also using cyanic acid, so you really can't get around this. You can't get around having to spend some cyanic acid and having to make cyanic acid. So if you're, generally speaking, doing this in a similar location as the overall rare earth ore processing setup, it's fine. It's easier to get 25 more cyanic acid, I would say, out of this 150 for the 3 cobalt extract. It's easier, I would say, to get the 25 cyanic extra than it would be to get the 75 sulfuric here. But again, it's optional. It is up to you. It doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, matter whether or not you're spending 75 for 5 ore in extra sulfuric acid, ending up with 1 copper plate, versus the 25 cyanic and ending up with 5 chromium that you have to deal with at all times. Grand scheme doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's up to you what level of complexity you are happy with. going into what will end up being your 10 rare earth concentrate, because either way, either one of these is viable for you. Now, what do you do once you get to the rare earth concentrate? You will solid separate it, of course, into a bit of iron oxide as well as 5 rare earth oxides. That is a 1-to-1 ore into oxides at the end of this chain without having the productivity modules added. If you add productivity to this, you will of course dramatically increase your rare earth oxide output. And just as a side caveat, you will need a lot more rare earth oxides the later you get into the game. The earliest you need rare earth oxides is of course going to be your circuit 2 processing chain. That is at green science going into your blue science, logistic into chemical science packs, slash maybe even actually I don't think it's used at all in neuroprocessors, so it's strictly going to be your circuit 2s. I could be wrong though, but yeah, circuit 2s is the main thing that these will be used for. And then, of course, more things later on. You do want an early-ish source of cobalt extract as well, which uses rare earth ore. Because the cobalt extract, the cobalt fluoride is going to be part of a chain to get into. I'm pretty sure it's the artificial blood in Pi Alien Life, in which you need some artificial blood to actually get your first muckmo in particular. And muckmo, oddly enough, are what you want to use to get manure. And apparently I got a new follow as I was recording this. Hello. A follow happened without even... I'm not even streaming. So, anyway, with all of that said, I think I've actually covered everything I wanted to cover on this particular video discussing the rare earth oxide chain. There it is. There's the options you have available to you, which I didn't really go into too much detail on the options, I think. I didn't really get into the numbers all that much on the original version of the tutorial, although this has not exactly changed in how it looks since the last time we met, so if you want to see how this looks, you can refer to the original tutorial video. With that, I would like to thank you all for watching. If you have been enjoying these videos thus far, please be sure to do all of the engagement and social stuff below the video. This series is of course supported by my patrons at patreon.com/otakushowboat, and of course you can support Pyanodon's mods development at patreon.com/Pyanodon. I will see you all on the next one.